Hey guys, in today's video we will be discussing the syllabus for first year MBBS. So let's get started. As you guys already know now that the subjects for first year MBBS are anatomy, physiology and biochemistry, where anatomy is further divided into gross anatomy, histology, embryology and general anatomy. First we will be looking into the syllabus for anatomy. The gross anatomy for first year MBBS includes upper limb, lower limb and thorax, the three regions of human body. And in the gross anatomy, you basically need to learn how to identify different structures on a cadaver. Then you should be knowing about different muscles in these regions, their attachments, their actions, their nerve and blood supplies. Also, you will be looking at different clinical correlations with every aspect and everything included in the syllabus. You should be knowing about all the bones of appendicular skeleton and also the rib cage and thoracic vertebrae in the region of thorax. You also need to know about different nerve plexuses, different arteries and veins, also the nerves in all three regions, and you should also know about the regional lymphatic drainage. You should also know about different bone fractures, different nerve lesions and other clinicals related to the particular regions. In case of thorax, you should be knowing about different important thoracic viscera. In case of lungs, the pleural reflections, the rib cage, the importance of percussion nodes in eliciting the extent of resonant and non-resonant viscera and their clinical importance, and everything that is included in the gross anatomy of these three regions. Now moving on to the general anatomy, you should be knowing about different anatomical terms and different planes like sagittal plane, coronal plane, median plane, every plane that can be used for the study of human body. Second, you should be knowing about the skeletal system, classification of skeletal system, classification of bones on the basis of shape, size, evolution, structure, development and different other classifications. You should know the general features of human body bones. You should be knowing the functions of bones, the concept of ossification and growth of bones, blood supply of bones, different clinicals related to the bones. In case of joints, you should know the basis of classification of joints, different characteristics, types and movements of synovial, cartilaginous and fibrous joints. You should know the factors responsible for stability of joints, the general principles of nerve and blood supply of joints, different clinicals again related to the joints. In case of the muscles, you should know different terms related to muscles and the classification of muscles, blood and nerve supply to the muscles. You should know about sprain, spasm, trophic degeneration and regeneration changes. You should be able to comprehend and explain the function of different synovial structures related to the muscles. These include tendons, tendon sheaths, bursae, the different types of fibrous structures occurring in skeletal muscles, and these are the aponeurosis, tendons, etc. Now coming towards the circulatory system, it basically includes the cardiovascular system and the lymphatic system. You should know the different types of circulations like in the cardiovascular system, like systemic circulation, pulmonary circulation. You should be able to classify and know the structures of different types of blood vessels. These are the veins, arteries and capillaries. You should know what is lymph. You should be able to know the components of lymphatic system. Those are the lymph nodules and lymph vessels. You should be knowing the mechanism of production and circulation of the lymph, the different functions of lymphatic and circulatory systems. In case of nervous system, you should be able to name different components of nervous system, that are neurons, ganglions, nuclei, nerves, tracts. You should know the different classifications of nervous system, also the formation of nerve plexuses, different reflex actions, reflex arc, reflexes, etc. While coming towards the skin and fascia, you should be able to name the different types of skin and also mention its components like dermis, epidermis. You should be able to enumerate the appendages that include hair, nail, different erector pili muscles, different glands that are sebaceous and sweat glands. The common techniques that are used for diagnosis and study of human body, for example, the CT scan, X-rays, MRIs, ultrasonography, ultrasounds, you should be knowing the basics of these two. Okay, so now we will talk about general histology. First of all, you should be knowing about different organelles and cells. Then coming towards different types of tissues, the muscular tissue, nervous tissue, epithelial tissue, etc. Different cell surface modifications. These include cilia and stereocilia, villi, microvilli, etc. The classifications of epithelium, what is epithelium, connective tissue proper, its types, classifications, everything. You should be knowing about the cartilages, their types, their functions. Same goes for the bone, types of bones, spongy bone, compact bone, muscles, their types, smooth muscles, skeletal muscles, cardiac muscles, their differences. You should know about the different nervous tissue cells, neurons, neuroglial cells, nerve fibers. You should know the basics and all the concepts for the lymphoid organs. These are lymph nodes, thymus, spleen, tonsils. Also the subdivisions of vascular system, different skin and appendages, as we talked about them earlier in general anatomy also, but in histology you are looking for the details of these structures as seen under the microscope, because histology is a microscopic study of these parts of the body, Also, you should be knowing about the histology of mammary glands, different clinicals, the structures of respiratory system. These are the nasal cavity, epiglottis, trachea, bronchi, and lungs. You should also know about certain terms like apoptosis, necrosis, hyperplasia, metaplasia, anaplasia, neoplasia, hypertrophy, and atrophy. You should also know how to draw the labeled diagrams of the structures that are mentioned above, like the lungs, mammary glands, trachea, thymus, spleen, epiglottis, different types of epitheliums, different types of glands, blood vessels, bones, cartilages, all of these, etc. Moving on to embryology, you should start with the cell division, the gametes, gametogenesis, then you should discuss the ovarian and menstrual cycles, then the fertilization, then cleavage of the zygote, blastocyst formation, implantation of embryo. You should be going from first week of development till the birth, including different changes and stages in second and third week, fourth to eighth week. Then you should be knowing about different fetal structures and their functions like the amnion, chorion, yolk sac, allantois, and umbilical cord. You should know about formation and functions of placenta. You should know the concept of multiple pregnancies, different procedures for assessment of fetus, the difference between in vitro and in vivo fertilizations. You should know about checkpoints for estimation of gestational age and viability of fetus, and you should be paying special attention to all those clinicals that are separately and especially mentioned in the syllabus, like sacrococcygeal teratoma, hydramnios, twin transfusion syndrome, conjoined twins, umbilical cord length variations, and amniotic bands. The embryology for first year MBBS also includes the study of different teratogens and teratogenesis, development of integumentary system including the mammary glands, development of the limbs and vertebral column, the development of muscular system, and very importantly the structural and numerical chromosomal anomalies and all the disorders related to them like Klinefelter syndrome, Down syndrome, Turner syndrome, etc. So we will be now discussing about the syllabus for physiology. And physiology for first year, you should know the basic and cell physiology. You should know about homeostasis and different control systems in the body, different functional organizations of human body, different cell organelles and cell functions, basic concepts about DNA and RNA. Then coming towards blood physiology, you should know about the composition and general functions of blood. You should know about plasma proteins, their properties, their details, erythropoiesis, functions of red blood cells, different types of blood cells that are. You should also know about white blood cells and their further classifications, along with the platelets, their roles and functions in the body. You should know about the basic concepts of hemoglobin, different blood indices. You should be able to explain hemostasis, mechanism of blood coagulation, fibrinolysis, anticoagulants, different blood groups, and their role in blood transfusions. In nerve and muscle physiology, you should know the structure of neuron, different properties of nerve fibers, classification of nerve fibers, the basis of resting membrane potential, then action potential, propagation of action potential, the different structural and functional relationships with skeletal muscles, neuromuscular junctions, transmissions, different characteristics of contractions of three types of muscles. Those are smooth, cardiac, and skeletal muscles. Isometric and isotonic contractions, their difference between tetany and tetanization, excitation, contraction, coupling, and the chemical changes during contraction and relaxation, and muscle fatigue is an important clinical to discuss in nerve and muscle. The CVS, that is cardiovascular system, includes the circulation through heart and body, the properties of cardiac muscles and the generation of cardiac impulses, their conduction, the comparison and contrast of action potential of SA node and ventricular myocardium, then the different events in cardiac cycle, the basics and concepts of ECG, electrocardiogram, the hemodynamics, different types of blood vessels, the blood flow through the body, microcirculation, lymphatic circulation, arterial pulse, cardiac output, blood pressure and its regulation, coronary circulation and the factors affecting it, and different stages of shock, their compensation, all the clinicals related to cardiovascular system. In respiratory system, you should be able to describe different functional organizations of respiratory tract, then respiratory and non-respiratory functions of the respiratory tract, then the production and functions of surfactant, the compliance of lungs, the protective reflexes, explanation of lung volumes and capacities, the pulmonary circulation and pulmonary capillary dynamics, the composition of atmospheric and alveolar and expired air, the diffusion of gases across the alveolar membrane, relationship between ventilation and perfusion, the nervous and chemical regulation of respiration, the abnormalities in breathing, hypoxia, cyanosis, etc. You should also know about the body temperature regulation and different functions of the skin. Then the human responses in varied environments like the cardiovascular, muscular, respiratory adjustments during the exercise, what happens to the body in response to high altitude and space, that is aviation, and deep sea diving and hyperbaric conditions. It's now the turn for biochemistry. The first topic for biochemistry syllabus is cell biochemistry. In this topic, you basically cover different functions of cell, biochemical composition of cell. You discuss in detail the cell membrane, and you particularly discuss the biochemical aspects of the cell membrane, different phenomena that occur across the membrane, transport of different substances by simple and facilitated diffusion, phagocytosis, endocytosis, all of that, etc. Then the membrane receptors, also different basic methods to study cell biochemistry, for example centrifugation, ultracentrifugation, radioimmunoassay, ELISA, all of that. Then there is water pH and buffers. You discuss ionization of water, weak and strong acids, weak and strong bases, the pH scale and measurement of pH, the pKa values, the dissociation constant, the titration curve, then different body buffer systems and their mechanisms of action. Then there is carbohydrates and carbs. You basically first of all define them, then their biochemical functions, basic classifications, different structures and functions in the body. You discuss monosaccharides, oligosaccharides and polysaccharides in detail, their further classifications if any. Then there is amino acids and proteins. Again, you discuss their definitions, biomedical importance, their classifications, their basic structure, functions, properties, the detail of standard and non-standard amino acids, then their other types, the dissociation and titration of amino acids, the determination of PI of amino acids, then the organization of proteins, different types of proteins, different techniques for separation of proteins. Then you discuss in detail all the types like plasma proteins, glycoproteins, hemoproteins, whatever. Nucleotides and nucleic acids. You basically learn the chemistry of purines and pyrimidines, their structures, their types, the structure and functions of nucleotides and nucleosides, but you don't consider the metabolism in first year. You basically have them in second year of MBBS. Then the natural and synthetic derivatives of purines and pyrimidines, the structures, functions and the types of nucleic acids, and again excluding the metabolism. For lipids and fatty acids, you again go for the importance, classifications, functions, structures, everything, the detail of the types, their reactions, their role in the body. For enzymes, you have the first of all introduction and classification, then properties of enzymes, different coenzymes, cofactors, isozymes, allosteric enzymes, mechanism of enzyme action, everything about enzymes. Then porphyrins and hemoproteins. You should know about the chemistry and biosynthesis of heme and the porphyrins, including the disorders related to the biosynthesis, that are porphyrias. Then the important hemoproteins, their structures, their functions, their clinical correlations, their types, detail of hemoglobin and myoglobin, the binding capacity of hemoglobin with oxygen, with carbon dioxide, with carbon monoxide, all of that, the oxygen dissociation curve, the bilirubin metabolism, the degradation of heme, then the hepatic uptake, conjugation, then excretion, all of that. Hyperbilirubinemias, their causes, jaundice, conductorus, hemoglobinopathy, sickle cell anemia, hemoglobin C disease, hemoglobin SC disease, thalassemias. Then there are vitamins and minerals. You need to know the detail and all about the vitamins and minerals, their classification, their importance, their functions, their absorption, transport, storage, mechanism of action, disorders associated with the particular vitamin and the results of it, the minerals like sodium, potassium, chloride, calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, sulfur, etc., the trace elements, the macro elements in this case. You should know their recommended dietary allowances, all of the things. Then there is nutrition. You would be learning about energy metabolism, then balanced diet, the major nutrients, the proteins, fats and lipids, carbohydrates, all of the things that make up the part of your nutrition. You have to calculate the caloric requirement for a person and nutritional requirements in pregnancy, lactation, infancy and old age. You have to deal with obesity and food additives, that are the artificial sweeteners and flavor enhancers, all of that. Then there is extracellular matrix. Its main topics include collagen, elastin, fibrillin 1, glycose, aminoglycans, and then the structure and functions of proteoglycans. You need to know the detail of all these parts of extracellular matrix along with their functions, structure, characteristics, the disorders related to them, everything. For the details of different topics related to any subject, or the tables of specifications, or the marks distribution, you can go through the syllabus that is provided by UHS or your medical board, and make sure that you look into the syllabus of your current year, because the syllabus might get a little bit changed over the years. So this was all about the first year MBBS syllabus. Don't forget to subscribe, like and share with your friends.